Welcome back to Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation Anime Review episode number 15. This I'm reviewing the 20th episode of the anime, which is called, if I can get to it, it's in my document here. Okay, it's called The Birth of My Little Sister, the Maid. Yep. Yep, that is literally the very name of this episode. Which, here's a little fun fact for you. It's actually also the title of one of the chapters for this episode. Chapter 6. Yes, this episode covers chapters 5 through 7 of Book 6. Yes, because last week they went to, I believe, Book 4. I believe so. Yes, I did. I at least gotta say, the cuts of this one actually were a lot better. It wasn't like really big details per se. It wasn't like almost an entire freaking chapter was cut. This episode starts off quite interestingly with basically something that happened back, I believe it was episode 8. It was the teleportation incident. Or come further with the book as the displacement incident. Where we see that, well, Xenia is basically by herself. We see Paul with Norn, his first daughter, and you see Lila, being a very reasonable parent, going to hug her daughter, Alyssa, and they get transported to the Shrona Kingdom. Yep. They do cut the bit here, basically, when they arrive, and when they ask for Roxy. Yes, they basically arrive at the palace, ask for Roxy. They are pretty much like detained for possibly a spy. They cut that detail, probably because it wasn't really necessary. Yeah, in my opinion, definitely was. I mean, mostly put, like, in case you're wondering, any details were cut here. Mostly it's like very small stuff here and there. It wasn't like big, humongous cuts per se. They cut a bit about something with the slave market, which they didn't have last episode, so that was cut here was fine because they cut it from last week's episode. So then we cut to present day. Then we see Rudy is in his cell. By the way, his whole opening thing, like right after that opening moment, like when you get to cut to him, yeah, this whole segment. Even though yes, they just did this in the episode. There's no such thing as a free lunch, which they mentioned. Oh yeah, I've acted this before. Yes, he has. For an episode of that book 5 of the series. Let's see. That was episode number. It wasn't 5. It was. I don't think it was 16. It was actually back in episode 14. So yeah, basically 6 episodes before this one, they had this. And now we're back to this one, which is, I think, is fantastic. I love it. Yep. So they about, oh yeah, got this free apartment, no rental, no deposit, even though he's trapped in a magical circle. And then all of a sudden, the door opens in the room he's in. By the way, they actually looks like the same room that Lila and Lisa were thrown into in the flashback for this one, which is quite interesting. That's from a later chapter, but I appreciate the fact that they did that first. It was kind of similar to what they had with Paul and North. And then you have the anime debut of Pax's brother. Yes, Pax's brother, Zobina. Yes. Yeah. So, he apparently is the third prince, which they do cut the tiny bit out. It's like, they do mention, like, apparently maybe off screen, they mention, that Rudy mentions that, oh yeah, I was put in here by your brother. So, basically they're there because the reason why he's here is because he wants to talk about figures. Yes. First thing is a rider figure that the Rudy's did make, and the other one, he says, oh yeah, I bought that someplace. And then he brings in the Roxy figure. I believe maybe back in episode like 3 or 4. It was not long after they introduced Safi in the series that they basically had him create a figure of Roxy. Which, get this, apparently you can disrobe this figure of Roxy by having her look like she's basically stripped down her underwear. Basically have her take off her hat, her robe, and take away her staff to basically show her in her panties and her covering her breast. Now, my guess is the only reason why he knows what she looks like this, because he peeped on her. Yep. And they basically, a lot of the conversation that when they talk about this figure, it's almost spot on for the book. It's like almost nothing is cut here. They do mention about a black spot under the armpit, which according to Zabuya, he removed that because it was beauty. And he mentions the reason why he had the arms, it was covering the chest, not the mole. And of course, he asked to be his student, and he's like, okay, but they do cut the bit out here of basically him telling him don't call him master. So he proceeds to find a way. Of course, he mentions about that he had traded off all of his guards for this figure. And even Rudy's Spirit points out, though, that's a stupid idea. You at least have your own guards. So he needs to free the thing. So what does he do? Like, he goes to his brother, he goes to Pax's bedroom and drag him out of bed in order to unlock this magical seal. And he does. And of course, causes a ruckus too. Meanwhile, though, Eris and Ryger had met up with this sort of resistance group who want to take down Pax for threatening families of soldiers. And of course, Eris had to stay with Alyssa because, well, she's a young girl, and of course, they want to leave her alone because it's Rudy, it's his sister. Of course, at this point, he thinks now viewers think that she does not know Rudy is her brother. It's really the end of the episode. Yeah, she knows Rudy was her brother all along because of pure kindness. So then, of course, Ryder goes to free the families of the soldiers. Then, of course, they go straight to the castle. Now, they have to do with the character Ginger here. Now, in case you're wondering, does Zumba appear after this particular set of stuff? Yes, he does. So, pretty much, like, of course, Eris listen to the ruckus. Of course, she does point out about Zumba's past being referred to as the blessed child, where when he was 3 years old, he killed his younger brother when he was basically very young. Also, apparently, he murdered his wife. And despite the fact he's referred to as the blessed child, the guy is also a monster. And apparently, for some reason, he apparently kills a legitimate heir. And I'm like, this guy is obsessed with Rudius. The guy killed his brother and his wife. It's one thing, basically, if a guy killed his brother. But, of course, that happens frequently in a lot of fiction. But killing your wife, oh boy. Especially if, of course, they do not mention the book if she was pregnant at that point. Not really, no. The reason for, he's kind of nuts. That's mainly the reason for why he acts the way he does. So, Eris sees this and basically goes straight to the castle, which apparently the hideout of the rebels is just right next to the palace. Which they go inside. Excuse me. And Rudius is easily freed here. There's also been a conversation cut out here related to Rudius and Lilith prior to the conversation in Hemi. Because, so, it's revealed that Zamba and Pax have been exiled from the country. Mentioned study abroad. In the book, basically, went to the Dragon Realm. That's simply what they are. Now, Zamba will return again, I think it was just a couple of books, because I believe he returned in the books related when Rudius went to the Magic University, which, by the way, he actually starts going to that in book 7. I know, because I've read the books. So he himself does return. And, of course, Then after everybody's freed, and of course mentioned by Ginger's family being freed, mainly her brothers, looks of it. It could be her brothers, it could be her sons, I don't know. And as a Ginger herself, I believe she's removed as a guard, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Now, in case you're curious, though, does the character Ginger come back? Yeah, she does. I believe she comes back occasionally afterwards. She comes back as a recurring character in the books. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically it's revealed in this episode she's actually originally loyal to Zaba. So, oh, by the way, what Zaba does with his brother, he nearly snaps his neck off. Oh, he's referred to as the guy who rips off the head ripper. Yes. He tries to say anything to his brother. Everyone says, oh, no, don't do that. So instead, he proceeds to break his brother's elbow. Yes. Seriously, he does this. And after all that's settled done, of course, they're both exiled. Then Lila has a reunion with, well, technically Rudy, so you can consider him to be her stepson. So they chat for a bit. She gives him a box. What's in this box? Roxy's panties, which he has not seen since episode 4. Yes. Which technically was the end of book 1 and the start of book number 2. If I'm not mistaken. Let me take a quick look at this. Because I believe that's the case with that one. Mm-hmm. Or like episode 4, I believe it was the end. I think it was 4 or 5, I think it was. Where it was the end of book 1. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it was basically book 1. Yes, book 1. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was definitely the case. Where that was pretty much the end of book 1. It was episode 5. Not 4, but 5. So, this is the first time in 15 episodes that Rudius himself has actually, seen the panties. Oh yeah, definitely. It's the first time he's seen the actual panties himself. So, excuse me. Oh yeah, there's a little trinket inside that Safi made for him before the teleportation incident. As a matter of fact, we do see briefly Safi in the episode. Which, I believe this is also the first time she's seen the anime for quite a while. She's been mentioned once a few episodes back prior to this. But physical appearance, yeah, great seeing her in flashback. And I would not be surprised, though, now I should point out that at this point in time in the books, she's basically undercover identity as Fitz, which no one knows Fitz is actually a girl. She's posing as a guy. That was a plot thread introduced in book 5 that eventually gets wrapped up in book number 9. Yep. So, giving the panties back, giving the special locket thing that was given to him by Safi, which is quite interesting. Yeah, this could imply the fact the anime has set up Safi's return later on, presumably if they have a season 2, when they officially adapt books 7 through 9, or at least mostly if they go to Black Book 12, whatever, which that should be quite interesting. I'm looking forward when they adapt that. So, with this episode here, they pretty much, in a way, are about halfway through book 6. Now, continue here. So, now you cut the bit basically where in the book, Lila does ask Rudius to take his sister with him. He says no, and then his sister asks him the same thing too. Excuse me, they cut Lila's bit, but they made sure to keep Alyssa's bit in here. So, stays for her mother for a little bit, but don't worry, she will return in book 11. Yes, she returns. She reunites with Rudius 5 books after this. Yes, seriously, it takes like 5 books for her to reunite with her brother. And she asks about him possibly becoming his servant, which that does happen. Yes, she officially does do that in the book. She does in book 11. She officially becomes this maid for him, and Rudius' first of 3 wives. Yes, Rudius does get officially married to the 3 wives. Though it doesn't happen just yet, per se. It's going to happen later on. You might think, oh, that way the record page? I read the damn books. So, I've read the first 12 books. So, basically, I can basically say this because I've actually read the books. So, I'm not going to spoil who the wives are right now, but he does get married 3 times. A lot more than his father got married, which was twice. And he's got a lot more kids than his father, who had 3. I think Rudius had like a 5 or 6. Of course, that part I did read about. Yep. But in the case of course, they go off. Alyssa and Lila go reunite with Rudius' father. They do cut the bit out here of Rudius giving her a little bit of money before she reunites with Paul, which she does. And Paul does mention the books. He's holding off sleeping with her until he reunites with Zenith. So at this point in time, Rudius has reunited with most of his family, which means the only person he's reunited with just yet is Zenith. Though here's the thing, in the books he reunites with Safi before he reunites with his own mother. Yep. He reunites with her officially technically in book 7. Yes. Though she's under the identity of Fitz at that point in time. Mm-hmm. And the reason, now, these one took me a while to get a chance to do this today, because the last few hours I've been just reading the book. Like, I read 3 full chapters. I reread the whole thing. And it is great, though, that the adaptation thing for this episode was actually a little bit better than last week's episode, with practically almost an entire chapter for, like, no reason at all. It's almost like the people who worked on this episode did also work on, like, the episodes adapted for book 4. Because the writing for this one is a lot better, and they kept a lot more in than the actual book itself. Now you might ask, how many chapters are in book 6? There are 7 chapters plus, I think an interlude and an extra chapter, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, I believe so. Because this one goes to chapter 7. Because that's as far as basically the cover. 5 through 7. There's exactly 6 chapters left plus an interlude and an extra chapter. And that's it. Now, you might ask, okay, next week's episode is going to be called Turning Point 2. And I don't think they can cover the last 6 episodes in next week's episode. Who knows what they're going to adapt to me. I'm sure they're probably going to adapt chapters 8 and 9, obviously. But I think in the case of one thing that... Now, there is a thing that happens in book 6 that I'm thinking the anime will definitely adapt the scene in the final episode of this particular set of episodes. Now, currently there are 3 more episodes left. So, that should be plenty of time for this series to finish adapting book 6. Yes. Oh, definitely. Yeah. I thought it was kind of dumb, though, that they have, book 5 be adapted for 3 episodes. They should have squeezed out 1 more out of this batch. They should have, but they didn't. But in the case of book number 6, I know for a fact that it's presumably this season's going to go up to 23 episodes. That's what I've heard anyways. So, the reason why it's assumed that because, this is going to be 12 episodes longer than the first season was. First cour anyways. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it is great, though, that they're going to be adapting that much. Mm-hmm. But yes, I'm definitely looking forward to the remaining 3 episodes this season. And the rate to go right now, because of the fact that it's consuming for 3 episodes. So, it'll probably end by the 19th of next month. That's probably where the season's going to end. The OVA, which the series is going to have, that's not going to air until March. Yes. So after next week, this series, the interview schedule will be reduced from having, basically with next week, it's going to go up to 4, but in a couple weeks after, it'll be reduced down to 3 soon, because starting next week, I'm basically going to start reviewing Demon Slayer. Yep. Because next week, excuse me, they're going to be adapting the Red Light District arc, which I'm looking forward to. That's going to be 11 episodes, basically about 3 months. So I might wrap up probably by February at the latest, maybe March. Yep. So yes, that's it for this particular review. Stay tuned for next review, which I'll definitely get a chance to do tonight. Review of newest episode of One Piece. Okay, 6th video. Bye.